So
Yeah.
what strategies you have found more effective? And then you were talking about the double dipping earlier, touch on that as well. And especially if somebody's new, how to get started. Because,
Yeah.
somebody needs some platform to take off from.
Yeah. So the financing is something that banks typically out there do not finance land.
Mhm.
Very few do. There's a few land financing banks out there, but they're usually more like either finance large, expensive land or infill lots and so on. So if you're a builder, you can go to your local bank. You've built 57 houses already. It's your 58th house. The bank's going to be like, sure, we know each other. This is a $100,000 piece of land. I'll give you a construction loan and I'll finance the land. But that 2-acre plot, half an hour outside of town, no bank is going to give you money on that.
This is the Real Estate Vibe Show, and I'm your host, Vinki Loomba. As a real estate investor and a fund manager, I'm always excited to explore the world of real estate opportunities with you and for you. Today, I have a very special guest. His name is Jack Bosch. Welcome, Jack, to the Real Estate Vibe Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Likewise, I'm excited to hear all about your journey. So a little bit about Jack. Jack came to US with just 2 suitcases and a dream, a big dream. He has become a leading figure in real estate investing. Originally from Germany, Jack and his wife, Michelle, have flipped over 4,500 land parcels. I think it's more than 4,500 you were telling me earlier.
Yeah, it's actually 5,000 now, yeah, or over 5.
Yeah, exactly. And he has built a multifamily rental portfolio valued in 9 figures. Through their Forever Cash model, they empowered over 1,000 individuals to achieve millionaire status via their educational programs. Jack's journey exemplifies the American success story, showcasing the power of determination and innovative investment strategies. So our topic for today is mastering land flipping and investment strategies. So land flipping, just wanted to mention out there, it involves purchasing undervalued land parcels and reselling them at a higher price, often yielding substantial profits. By honing skills in market analysis, due diligence, and strategic planning, investors can capitalize on opportunities that others might overlook. And I think Jack kind of honed that skill set right there. This expertise not only enhances profitability, but also provides a competitive edge in the dynamic real estate market. Moreover, a deep understanding of land investment strategies allows for informed decision-making, efficient resource allocation, and the ability to navigate complex transactions, ultimately leading to long-term financial success like our guest did. So I'm going to ask you, Jack, if you can take us through your journey and share how initially you got involved into land flipping and why you picked this niche.
Yeah. So I picked a niche out of by pure accident. So my wife and I, as you mentioned, coming here as immigrants, kind of within a few years of finishing our college degree and getting jobs, we're a little bit disillusioned by the work world, and we're like, I don't want to do this for the next 45 or 40 years here. I want to have more freedom. I want to be able to travel. We left our families behind in our respective countries. My wife is from Honduras, Central America. And so we started looking around, and a friend of mine told me, I sat down with a friend of mine who had built a successful 8-figure company. And he took all these month-long trips to Italy and to things. And it's like, Gunther is his name. Is like, Gunther, how do you do this? And he's like, well, hard work. And it's like, well, everyone tells me I'm not afraid of hard work, but like, what have you done? And it's like, what would you recommend me if you would have to start from scratch again? What kind of business would you be looking for that would qualify for the lifestyle that you want to live, which was kind of the lifestyle I wanted to live? And he basically said, well, there's 4 criteria. Number 1, pick a business that by its pure definition is profitable, because not every business is designed to be profitable. Like the average Subway franchise store costs $300,000 to $400,000, and then the person has to work 80 hours, 100 hours a week, open the store, close the store, be there, order thing, hire people, do accounting, do bookkeeping, do again clean thing, everything. Like, and at the end, they make on average $67,000. So a franchise is like buying yourself another job. You put your life savings in it, and then you have a job. Like, so it's like some businesses are just not designed to be profitable, but pick something that you can scale, that you can build profits with. So, okay. Number two, build something that actually doesn't need you to be involved all day long. Something that you can do that also brings passive income, like something that you can automate and outsource a lot of pieces. So then you have freedom of money and freedom of time. And then if it on top of it brings passive income, cash flow, now you can even stop and have money coming in. And then number four, in my particular case, because I was on an H-1B visa as an immigrant in this country, I couldn't quit my job. If I would have quit my job or lost my job, I would have had 60 days to find another job or leave the country. So I was like, you got to, and I was 100% travel. My job was in software consulting. I was Monday to Friday, I was gone in different parts of the country. So it couldn't open anything brick and mortar part-time. It wasn't possible. So from that moment on, he says, in my case, very important that it needed to be something I could do part-time and from a distance. So these four criteria: profitable, you can automate it and outsource, passive income, and in part-time and from a distance, were from that moment on the filter through which every business opportunity that we came across, we looked at. And soon enough, we found real estate. We were like, real estate can be profitable, of course, very profitable. Real estate, some of it, depending on what strategy in real estate, you can automate and outsource a lot of things. Yes. It can provide passive income, and if you do it right, you can do it partly you can do it part-time and from a distance. So it's like, great. So we looked around, but what real estate we didn't know. So we started the most natural thing was to do what everyone talks about, which is house wholesaling, house fix and flipping. And we failed. We failed like crazy because we didn't know, coming from another country, we didn't know their language of real estate. I didn't know what a 2x4 was, what a deed was what all the different terminology was. So the first house we walked in that we did driving for dollars, we got a house under contract. It needed everything. But how do I know if a house needs new electric? How do I know if it needs new roof when the roofs in Germany are completely built differently than the roof here? I can't tell if a roof is old or new. I mean, sometimes you can tell if it's falling apart, but I don't know if it says 5 years to go or 35 years to go. And so we estimated everything wrong. We failed. We tried to wholesale a house. That one, we failed. We tried to fix and flip. Nobody even wanted to give us money. We failed. Then we looked into tax liens and tax deeds, and we bought some liens, and they were redeemed 3 weeks later. We made $3.82. That wasn't it. Then we said, oh, how about tax deeds? When people like actually go to an auction where people don't pay the property taxes and these properties come up for auction. So we took our life savings of a few $1,000s, went to an auction, and within 5 minutes we're outbid by everyone. And we came back with a tail between our legs, and it's like, okay, that didn't work. But out of all of that, we then started realizing, coming up with one idea. And that idea was around the tax delinquent world. What blew us away was the fact that there is indeed people that don't want their property so much that they literally stop paying property taxes and let that property go to a tax sale, either to a tax lien sale and then foreclosure, or a tax deed sale. And we're like, how is that impossible? Then we had another thought. And the thought was, well, if we can compete at the auction, what if we contact these people directly and see if a few weeks, a few months, or even a few years before these auctions, they're willing to to sell us these properties? Because if you think about a state like California, if a property comes up, if somebody stops paying property taxes today in 2025, that property is not going to come up for auction until the year 2031. And in the meantime, for the next 5.5 years, nobody will know that this property actually owes property taxes. There's not like a big list this year. Here's the people that haven't paid property taxes. There's none of that. But it is available because you can go today to data sources and say, like, give me everyone that doesn't pay property taxes. So what we did is we went to the county, we got a list of all the people that owe property taxes, and we started sending them a letter. And then strangely, only people with land replied. Nobody with a house replied. Nobody with a commercial property, no multifamily property, only land people replied. Because what we realized afterwards is they're like, yeah, I have no need. I inherited that piece of land. I don't want it. My dad doesn't want it, didn't want it. Like, it's been sitting there. I don't want to keep paying property taxes. I just don't want this thing anymore. So we literally had people like giving us pieces of land for free. We had people, our first deal, we paid $400 for a property worth $10,000 and sold it to the neighbor for $4,000. And all of a sudden we're getting these properties for 10, 20, 30 cents on the dollar. And we're like, well, I don't know much about real estate, but I know that if it's worth 20 grand and I'm paying 4, there's probably a way for me to make money here. So without knowing, because you don't need to know anything about the repairs. We didn't have to, there's no fix and flip, there's no doors, there's no roof, there's no foundations, there's no mold, there's no tenants, there's nothing. We're just like, well, if we're getting a $20,000 property for $2,000, 10 cents, then we can probably mark it up for 8 and sell it. And sure enough, and our first deal we made $3,600. Second deal we made $10,000. Then soon enough, we got a package of properties for $3,000. We got something like $200,000 worth of properties. Like, it was a crazy deal. It doesn't happen very often, that one. But like deals like that, all of a sudden, we started getting, and to this day, we're getting deals for about 20 to 60 cents on the dollar. And then we simply did wholesaling. Then we just mark them up, pass them on to somebody else, still at a bargain, and do what's called a double closing, where we don't even use our own money. We use the buyer's money to pay everyone involved. And so we basically do land deals using none of our own money and making an average profit of $15,000 a deal.
Oh, that's interesting. Wow, congratulations. See, it all happened because of your consistent efforts. Because you and your wife, you guys been trying, from your story, that's what I heard. You've been trying this and that, this and that, this and that. And finally, some door has to open for you, right? Because you're trying to knock on each and every door,
Yeah.
which one is going to open. And it opened, and voila, wow, it was a big door, right? Bringing a lot of things for you. But now I'm going to ask you this question. Since you are savvy now, you've been doing it for last 15, 17 years. So what are the key factors do you consider now when you're evaluating a piece of land? Or
Okay,
you're still, whatever comes your way, getting it?
So the property taxes are no longer something we look at. Because what we realized that in some areas, you wanted to do deal in a smaller county, like for example, in Texas, there's a lot of small counties. So in Texas, there's counties, if you want to only go after the tax delinquent properties, the people who haven't paid property taxes, there might only be 45 properties that haven't paid property taxes. So you send them a letter or 2 or 3 and you might pick up one property, but how about I want to do more than one property. I want to do 200 deals a year, right? So with that, we soon realized that the people who owe property taxes are the most motivated, but the people who still pay property taxes are just a little bit less motivated. So and many counties have thousands of those kind of properties that you can go after. And yes, you have to offer them just a little bit more, but still, instead of like 30 cents, you offer them 35 cents, or instead of 20 cents, you offer them 30 cents on the dollar on these properties. So today we're looking at value is most importantly. So we no longer do those $4,000 or $5,000 deals. You still can do them, but actually the market has shifted a little bit right now with the last few years of high inflation. The only people that usually, or the people that usually want a $10,000 property are people that only can afford a $10,000 property. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just, that's how it is. Somebody who has a $200,000 income, they want a representative piece of land, which is more like a larger piece, a mini ranch outside of town that's 20 acres and that's worth $150,000. Somebody wants a $10,000 piece of land because they can't afford more. And unfortunately, that socioeconomic group has been wiped out to the inflation because they just don't have the money right now to buy them. So what we do, though, is market value, $30,000 and up, the market is on freaking fire. People, there's lots of people willing to let these properties go, and there's an abundance of buyers willing to buy these properties, either for cash, or we also do seller financing. So we allow people to pay a down payment and make monthly payments and pay it off. Also, you can split those lots sometimes and do like land, like parceling them off, or you, even like right now, I'm working on a large deal that's even a land development deal. We're doing an entitlement on a deal that we bought, that we have it on a contract for $1.7 million. But once it's done, it might be an $8 million property. So there's different ways, but what we're looking for is $30,000 and up market value. We're looking usually for people that don't live right next to the property, but like a little bit further away. We're looking for people that either owned it for many, many years or just got it, but got it like through heirship to basically inheritance. Those are great, great properties and so on.
But how do you decide that this is going to be the right piece of parcel that you're going to get and you'll be able to resell? Can you walk me through your due diligence process?
Yes, absolutely. The first thing is really it's a matter of it's a matter of price. If you get it cheap enough and you can resell it cheap enough, most land can be sold. So if you have a $30,000 property, it might be either, or let's say $50,000, it might be an infill lot. Think about a street, 35 houses, a few empty lots. Those lots, if it's a $500,000 neighborhood, they're more like worth $100,000. So those kind of lots, we don't need to get much discounts. We know they're usable. We know it makes sense for a builder to build because a builder is going to do a mathematical calculation. They're going to basically say, if I sell this house for $500,000 and it costs me $250,000 to build that house, and I want to make $150,000, then I have $100,000 left for the land. So yeah, I, as a builder, I'm willing to pay up to $100,000 for a piece of land, and then my math makes sense. So if I can get a piece of land like that in a neighborhood that's worth $100,000, if I can get that for $75,000 from somebody who's owned it for many years, just inherited it or just got it, they're happy because it's almost market value, but I can turn to the builder and sell it for full market value at $100,000 the next day. So in that case, my due diligence is more like valuation. I like it's $100,000 property. I know it's in a buildable area. All utilities are there. And there's a lot of builders in these areas and they're willing to buy this tomorrow. Now I just need to get it for a little bit below market value. If the second kind of property we focus on is more like in the outskirts of town, what we call the path of growth. So you have a city, the city's growing, you're outside of that growth. On that ones, you got to be a little bit more careful. But what's happening there is you're typically dealing with three kinds of buyers. And we keep that in mind. We keep our buyer in mind in the selection of the properties that we go after. And typically we're dealing with three buyers there. Three buyers. Buyer number one is what I call the remote worker. Like you might be working from home. I work from home. There's no reason why I have to live in the city. Like there's now after COVID, there's up to a third of, still to this day, almost a third or about a third of the United States population, working population works from home. That's 50 million employees that work from home. Well, those 50 million people, they don't have to live in a cookie cutter neighborhood, in a cookie cutter house with an HOA that you get a nasty letter if you leave your garbage can out too long. Many of them want 2 acres, so 5 acres outside of town, have like, I don't know, some chickens, have some garden, have space, have a playground in the backyard, but then be 25 minutes from the city and in 25 minutes be back in town. So we're focusing on that kind of property. So when I find a 2-acre property outside of town that it's on a main road, then I already know I can sell it because the buyers are already there. I know what the buyers are looking for. That's what they're looking for. The other kind of buyer that I'm looking for is potentially a future retiree. There's a lot of people in their 50s today that haven't saved up enough for retirement. So if they go into retirement and they have to pay $2,000 in rent, but their Social Security is only $1,600, they're screwed. So a lot of them, what they do is they buy land. They buy a $30,000 piece of land outside of town. Again, 2 acres on the road, utilities, perhaps where they can put a mobile home on there. They take seller financing, so they pay us down $6,000 and then pay $300 a month until it's paid off for the next 10 years. And then in 10 years, when they retire, they get a used mobile home, put it on there. Now got a dignified retirement because they have a free and clear mobile home on a free and clear lot and $1,600 coming in to live off. And the third kind of property is the third kind of buyer is simply a financial buyer. Often these properties very close to the city. There's people that are sick and tired of the ups and downs of the stock market. They're simply buying these properties, putting and not even seeing them. They're just waiting for everything else come around, all the development come around. And that's that 5-acre parcel that today perhaps is worth $100,000. 15 years from now, it's going to be worth $5 million because everything else is built around it. So these are just financial buyers. So if I find a property in a path of growth area that's 5 acres on a good road and something, then I know how to market it. And then the due diligence is very simply, I look at what these properties are worth. And how do I find that out? I simply open Zillow, go select land, go select the area, and then see what has sold in that area. And typically, if it's like a 2-acre, 5-acre, 10-acre property in like outside of town, you'll find a lot of other properties have sold too. And if nothing sold whatsoever, it's a little bit of an alarm signal, because if there's nothing for sale and nobody buys anything, then you want to be careful, right? You can still make that deal, but now you offer even lower because you probably have to really sell it at a low price to even get it sold. But on a good moving area, we typically look for markets that are growing, but not hyper growth. So not Dallas, Texas, but sometimes outside of Dallas, Texas.
Outside of Dallas.
Right? So so we use these kind of things. And then, so if I have a 2-acre parcel, half an hour outside of Dallas, Texas, on a main road with utilities, this thing doesn't sit on the market more than 3 days and it's sold, most likely, because there's lots of people who want that. Even people want to live there, commute to the city once a week. People want to retire there. People just want to hold on to it. And then, or if it's a 20-acre parcel 2 hours away from town, then it's a more like recreational kind of game. So we like these kind of three pub infill lots, path of growth, and larger acreage in more recreational areas. Kind of like think about a mini ranch. And a lot of affluent people love having their own kind of space outside of town. And then what we do is when we find them, now it's all about getting it cheap enough. And that's our specialty, finding those people that either have inherited them, that own them for 40 years, they don't want them anymore, they're sick and tired of paying property taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And often we can get them, as I said, for 20 to about 60 cents on the dollar.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing is you have already set up your systems, which is very important. And that's the reason it's working for you. So you have a one bucket where you're getting all these land deals from. Maybe I wanted to ask you that question first. Maybe where do you get these deals? You said there's a list, you get a list. Where do you get that list? Or then you start contacting people. So answer that first, please.
Sure. So back 20 years ago, we've been doing this since 2002, so 23 years now. We would literally have to drive to a county and meet with the county officials and ask them, explain to them what we want, and they would burn a CD for us. And then we would have to bring that to an IT specialist, and they would have to extract that list for us and aggregate it and things like that. Today, there's data sources, like we have a software, for example, that we self-created that is integrated with a data source that our customers, are the people that use it, pay like a few cents per record to download data. There's nationwide data services like CoreLogic, DataTree, DataQuick. There's many different other services out there. It's probably like 50, 60 companies nowadays out there that you can either pay per record, like 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, depending on volume, cents per record, or you can pay a monthly fee and then you get a certain amount of data from them. And what they have is they basically, a lot of them are owned by title companies, or at least the big ones. And because title companies have basically an extract from the database from the county all over the country, and now they have aggregated that into a huge database and made it commercially available for you to dip into that. So today, if I want to get information about tax delinquent data, I simply go and it's like, I want everyone in that area that has that hasn't paid their property taxes in the last 3 years, and go whoop, and it tells me that's 5,324 records. It costs you that amount of that much money. You pay for it and you download it, and you have that records 2 minutes later directly on your hard drive on your laptop. And or if you do it through our software, you can download it directly into the software. Then from there, you can directly send it to the mailing house for a direct mail, or you can extract it and send it to a cold calling center for them to cold call for you, or whichever way you want to approach those sellers.
So you do have a system after that too. Once you extract the data, then you scrape the data, and then you have maybe the email nurturing sequence. So it just got put into your CRM, I will call it.
Yeah, it's a CRM, yeah.
And then you add in the CRM, and then now you start with the name, your email drip system, sending it to people, 1 email, 2 email, and then whosoever responds, accordingly, you take an action from there, right? That's the step.
Exactly right. So we use a little bit more direct mail or cold calling than email, because email nowadays, it would be spam if you just send people that you've never been in contact with an email. And many email services these days are so sophisticated that the people will never even see the email. It goes straight into their spam. So we like to use more direct mail, or there's services out there that you give a list of people, they skip trace the phone numbers of those people and they call them directly, and that also works very well.
So cold calling works. That's good. Okay, so that one is done. And the second part of my question was that you have a list, right, or the buyers maybe. So how did you build that bucket, if you can shed some light on that? Because earlier you're talking about the double closing, and that's where I'm coming down to, because that's going to be my next question. What exactly the double closing is and how does that happen? But first tell us, how did you build your buyers bucket?
So obviously when you start, you have no, you haven't, this is empty. You have nothing. You have no buyers lined up. Exactly. So what we typically do is we have 6 different strategies on how we sell these properties. The first one, and the one that up until about 5-6 years did not work very well, but now it's our #1 strategy, is simply get the property listed with a top land realtor. And here's the key, a top land realtor. Like most realtors do not know about how to sell a piece of land, because you sell a piece of land completely different than a piece of than a house. A house, everyone knows. You have a photographer come in at sunset. You have a video going through it. You have a 360 thing. You stage it. You declutter it. You put nice furniture in there. You wait for sunset and all these kind of things, and then you do a broker open. And every realtor out there knows how to sell a house. Well, a land, you can perhaps do a drone video, but other than that, you don't stage it, you don't declutter it, you don't, like, most people don't have a clue how to do with it. So most realtors, they're really unexperienced. The way you sell land is that you really tell a story about what you can do on or around the land. Because nobody buys a piece of land because it has 3 trees or 12 trees or 17 trees. People, unless they want the trees, right? So of course, unless they want to cut down the trees, then it's a different story. But people buy the piece of land. The retiree buys a place half an hour outside of town that is affordable, that is connected to utilities, that is connected to the road, that is close to the road, where they know that in 5 minutes they can be in a little village where there's a church, where there's a grocery store, and where there's a diner. Where they can go 10 minutes in this direction, there's a lake. Where they know in 25 minutes they're back in the city. So you describe those things in the listings, and land and realtors often do not know how to do that until a few years ago. But land is really becoming popular. It's the new asset class that is now that is hot since COVID, when people like locked into their rooms and into their houses. People want space. So land has taken off like freaking rocket ship and has not come down. So more and more realtors are realizing that there's actually money to be made by being a really good land realtor. So selling with a good land realtor is really, really good. You just need to first find them. There's a little bit of a process that we follow there. The second way we do it, there's actually lots of online platforms. Like you can put the property on Zillow. You do not have to be the owner of the property to put it on Zillow. You can put it right after having it under contract, put it on Zillow. You can put it on the MLS. There's services like brokerlessmls.com that you can actually have the property put on there, even if you don't own it in many states. And there is also Facebook Marketplace. Like, used to be that we used Zillow. Zillow doesn't work anymore. Facebook Marketplace, much better. So when you put it into these places, like a well-located property, like 2 acres outside of Dallas, Texas, let's say, or outside of whatever, Denver, Colorado, or outside of Phoenix, Arizona, outside of Atlanta, Georgia. I don't want to highlight Dallas, Texas. I want to just like outside of a good growing metro area, on a main road that's it, ideally for a virtual worker, for a retiree, or even for somebody to buy and hold it, or for a longer term. That property put on Craigslist, you might get 200-300 inquiries about that piece of land in a matter of a week. And so what you do is every time you get an inquiry, they only kind of press that button, say, is this still available? So you get a constant like, is this still available? Is this still available? Is this still available? You respond saying like something like, yes, it's still available. Could you send me your contact information or email address so I can send you more information? So they send you the email address and your name, and then you take down the name and the email address, you save it in our CRM again, and you start building what's called a buyer's list. Because if you have 300 people reach out for that one piece of property, how many can buy it? Only one, right? So one of the 300 buys it. There's 200. That means 299 people have now given you their information, or not everyone does, but perhaps 200 people have given you their information. You save that, and now let's say you have another property in that area for sale. What do? You go straight to those 200, send them an email and say like, hey guys, you missed out on this one but this is long sold, but I got another one. Who is interested in that? And it's even cheaper than this one, perhaps. And then boom, 200 set of eyes go there, and the likelihood is very, very high that somebody buys that property. And then at the same time, you still put it on Facebook Marketplace. You still put it, there's another website called landwatch.com. Gets, I think, 8 or 10 million visitors a month, and all they have for sale is land. So, but it's not their land, it's a land marketplace. So you put your land on landwatch.com, you put it on Facebook Marketplace, you put it on Zillow, you list it with a realtor, and now you got leads flowing in from everywhere. And so over time, you're building up a huge, massive buyers list. And then what happens is next time, soon enough, you don't even have to put it on these platforms anymore. You get a deal in, you send an email out, you have the property sold.
Yeah, because you have your own internal database where you're matching the buyers and sellers. Okay, so let me ask you this. The next question comes the financing. That's very important, right? So what strategies you have found more effective? And then you were talking about the double dipping earlier, touch on that as well. And especially if somebody's new, how to get started. Because, somebody needs some platform to take off from.
Yeah. So the financing is something that banks typically out there do not finance land. Very few do. There's a few land financing banks out there, but they're usually more like either finance large, expensive land or infill lots and so on. So if you're a builder, you can go to your local bank. You've built 57 houses already. It's your 58th house. The bank's going to be like, sure, we know each other. This is a $100,000 piece of land. I'll give you a construction loan and I'll finance the land. But that 2-acre plot, half an hour outside of town, no bank is going to give you money on that. So if you get this deal, let's say it's worth $50,000, you got it under contract for $10,000. And you now turn around and you put it on the market. Typically, we put it on the market in one of two ways. One way is you just mark it up to $35,000. It's a smoking deal on the market. Everything else costs $50,000. This is $35,000. And somebody says, I got it. Here's $35,000. It might go to title companies and a proper closing and everything and title insurance, but they just pay cash for it. It's a wholesale deal. The second way we like to sell that is like to say, hey, let's mark it up to $50,000, to full market value, which normally means it sits for a while. But then you go and say like, hey, but if you don't have $50,000, I'm willing to sell it to you if you just give me 20 or 25% down, and then I allow you to pay the rest in monthly payments. So you become the bank and you offer seller financing. So in that case, what's the deal is going to be? You have it under contract for 10, you market it, you'll sell it for 50, and they give you a $12,000 down payment. So with a $12,000 down payment, you now have 10 to pay to the seller. So you don't even have to come up with your own money. 10 can be used to pay the seller, 2 can be used to pay the title company, and you just bought and sold the property using none of your money, and now they still owe you $38,000, which you now pay in monthly payments of $450 a month for the next 15 years, because you also charge interest on it, and now you generated an over $5,000 a year cash flow for the next 15 years with no money in the deal.
Wow, that's awesome. But do you need some kind of realtor licensing or something to get the deal contract? How do you get the contract going between the buyer and the seller?
So you use our marketing strategies, as I said, get those lists, use direct mail, cold calling, and so on to find those sellers. So you get under contract with the seller, and our contract typically lasts for like 6 months. We give ourselves plenty of time to be able to solve title. Sometimes we get those deals so cheap because there's title issues. Not every deal is just like Jim and Susie Smith are 60 years old. They don't want the property anymore. They bought in their 20s. They're willing to give it up for us and for us for 10 cents or 20 cents on the dollar. Sometimes you have to help them through probate and a couple of things come in. But so we needs a little bit time. So we put it under contract for 6 months, then we market it. And then when we have the buyer, we simply have a contract with the buyer. So now we have two contracts. We have a contract with a seller for 10 grand, a contract with a buyer for $50,000 with a $12,000 down payment and $450 a month in monthly payments. So we take both of these contracts, give it to a title company. Title company now does all their paperwork for everyone, sends everyone their paperwork. Everyone signs all the stuff and all the deeds and everything, sends it back to the title company. Title company now says, okay, who's going to come up with the money? And we point to the buyer. The buyer sends in $12,000. The title company is going to keep $2,000 for themselves, send $10,000 to the seller, and have have the buyer sign the note that now says, I owe you $38,000 and I'm going to pay this off for the next 15 years and $450 a month payments with XYZ interest rates. And that's it. So you have the title company in the middle facilitating all of this.
Great. So you have your standard contracts already written for the buyer and the seller.
Yes.
And then you hold on to that note that you get from the buyer that is going to pay you for whatever number of years is remaining on the deal. Wow.
And very important is the contract with the seller is a completely different kind of contract than the contract with the buyer.
Right.
Because with a seller, I want to make sure that if something happens or I don't like the property, I can back out. Right? It's and with a buyer, I want to make sure that the buyer cannot back out. Right? So it's a completely different contract. This one is 1 page long. This one is 3 pages long. So it's very, very different contracts written for the different purposes.
Well, so you got the contracts written legally, and then it's
yes,
like
of course,
really done. It's standard though. But what are some of the common challenges or mistakes you have encountered, throughout your career that you wanted to share with us, or somebody who's new to this game?
So the common mistakes is that people don't follow the due diligence process, because sometimes when you get a deal under contract from a seller, you think it's worth $50,000, but then you do research and you find out, oh, there's really an easement going through that makes half of the property non-buildable. Oh, there's really an area that's swampy in the back of the property. That means we don't buy swampland, so we don't want swampland. That really means I can't build there. We had that case last year. We got a deal on a contract for $2,800. And we had, within a couple of weeks, we had a buyer for $21,000, cash buyer. That's a nice little deal, right? That's like a $18,000, $19,000 profit. But then the title company did the research and they did exactly that. They found out, oh, this easement takes off 20% of it. Then they found out, oh, this one, another kind of thing takes off. And at the end, only 10% of the property was buildable. And we had to back out of the agreement. Now, if you don't do that early enough, you might waste a bunch of time and they get all excited. And so, but the nice part is that we have in our contract the right that we can cancel a contract anytime for any reason. So after this, after one thing after the other came through, we're like, you know what, this is not worth it. Sent the seller an email saying like, hey, we're exercising paragraph 4 of our contract, which says we can cancel for any time for any reason. So we're canceling because of here's the reason why, here's the documentation for it. I'm sorry for it, but thank you. And so you want to make sure that you use a proper contract that protects you. And what I see people make mistakes is they butcher their own contract together. Our programs have the contracts included, but sometimes people think they know better and they use their own contract instead of the contract that we have used for 5,000 deals already all over the country.
Interesting. But when you raised a very good point, the due diligence, you say you do the due diligence. So what steps do you take to go through the due diligence process before you get the land under contract? Or do you usually get the land under contract, then go through the due diligence because you have a clause in there because you can back out anytime and let the title company do all the research for you? Tell us about
a variation of the latter. So yes, we typically don't do a lot of research up front. We only find out the property value.
Mhm.
And we do that by going on Zillow mostly and other platforms and other ways. But that once we have the property value, we offer a certain percentage of it, and then we might renegotiate a little bit, get the deal under contract. The moment we have it under contract, yes, we open escrow. The title company now looks for, does a lot of research, but we also do research. So we do not just leave it up to the title company, because the title company is only going to make sure that the title is clean.
Clean. Mhm.
Right? They're not going to look and see if there's environmental issues on the property.
Mhm.
Right? So we are going to the Environmental Protection Agency, to the EPA.gov, and we are going to put in the address of the property or the address of our house close by. We're going to put something in there that shows us, has there been kind of any environmental issues in that area that we need to be aware of? We're going to go and look at that, call the city planning and zoning department and say, like, what can I build there? What's the setbacks? Because if you have a 5-acre parcel, there's probably enough space to build something. But what if it's a 5,000 square foot parcel? It's not a whole lot of space. That's like 50 by 100 feet. Well, if you have setbacks that are too much, setback meaning that you can't build your house all the way to the street. Your house needs to be away from the street, a certain amount of feet, and it needs to away from the backyard, from the back border, and away from the sides, so that two people don't build houses directly on the property border next to each other. And that looks stupid, and it doesn't make sense, and it just causes neighborhood fights and stuff. So everyone needs to follow the rules. So we're going to see, like, well, what's called the building envelope. So if a property looks like that, if I have to be in from here and in from here, then this is my building envelope. Is that big enough to build a house? Can I put mobile homes on there? What's the maximum size of a house? What's the minimum size of the house? Et cetera, et cetera. So all these things I need to find out in the due diligence. And so the moment we have it under contract, we do work the phones mostly and call usually one or two departments in the city, like the city planning and zoning department or development services. They give you all the information, or depending where it is, what's the water level? If this is a little bit more rural and you're in Arizona, the water level, you might not have city water there. So you might need to do a well. Well, how deep are the water levels? Right? Easy to find out. It's just a couple of phone calls. But we do that once we have it under contract. And if the answers are satisfactory, then we move forward. If they're not, we either renegotiate or we cancel the deal.
Thank you for sharing that. I know I have one of that experience too, because we were looking at one deal in Midwest somewhere. I think that had a sinkholes in there, and there was a family property, and then we didn't get into that just because of that. So, but thank you for sharing all your knowledge and insight. Really appreciate that. I know I have a lot more questions, but we're really out of time. So at this time, I'm going to ask you for one golden nugget from my audience.
Okay, one golden nugget. Like as we started out to going perhaps to your first question, and the first question was like, how did we stumble upon that? And since then, we have now we own almost 1,000 apartment units. We in multifamily, we do syndications, we do all these kind of things. And the 4 criteria, they still apply. Like they apply to multifamily, like is it profitable? Yes. Can you do it? Can you automate and outsource everything? Yes, you can hire a third-party property management company and they deal with most of the day-to-day things. Does it provide passive income? Yes, we have multifamily properties that provide amazing passive income. And can you do it part-time from a distance? Yes, all our multifamily properties are spread around the United States. But the key question is, would I have been able to do this early on? And the answer for me is no, because I had no knowledge whatsoever about anything in real estate. And I had no confidence. I had no capabilities. I had no knowledge. I had none of these things. So my golden nugget is simply, or my recommendation for everyone, if you want to do in real estate, follow those 4 rules, but then pick something that you can embrace, that you can get your arms around, that you can understand, and that you can get started with. My first land deal made me $3,600. My last multifamily purchase was a $10 million multifamily purchase. So I started with something so simple that I could say, I can do that. I have no knowledge. I have no understand what even what deeds meant and what 2x4s and what drywall is. Is like, why drywall? Is there wet wall? I didn't even know what that was. So I was like, and I started with such simple things that, but it built my income, it built my capabilities, it built my knowledge, it built everything around me and my confidence more than anything. And then I took the next step, and then I took the next step, and soon enough, we have a 9-figure portfolio.
Wow, I like that golden nugget. Take baby steps, but be consistent and persistent to reach your goal.
And pick something that has results, but is not so complicated that you give up halfway through. And that's why for us that even houses were too complicated for us. Even wholesaling houses was too complicated for us. But land wasn't, because I didn't have to know anything about real estate other than I have to figure out how to value it, how to find the value of a property. And if I can go and get a discount steep enough from that value, I'll figure out a way to sell this property. That's all I needed to know. And then from there, everything else came afterwards.
That's true. You know how knowledge is so powerful? Once you have the knowledge, it gives you the confidence to move forward. So this brings us to our rapid fire round. I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You're going to answer it in 1 word or 1 sentence only. Are you ready?
Okay. Gonna be hard.
All right. So share with me 1 important thing that you have learned in your life, and how did your life change after learning it?
To do what you say and say what you do. And how it changed, it allowed us, it doesn't really change. It's my dad taught me that from little on. He basically said I didn't want to do certain things, but I had come. He is like his question was always the same. Did you say you would do it? Yes. Did you commit you would do it? Yes.
And just
You're
do
doing it. You don't have it. You're not wiggling out of this. You're doing it. And what came out of it is a reputation of somebody that does what he says he does. And there's no bigger, more important kind of thing that you can do in life than to be a person that other people can rely on their word on. So like I always say, I don't need contracts. I have contracts for other people because I know I'm going to hold up my end of the contract.
That's
the
true.
contract is just to make sure the other people hold up their side of the contract, because I don't know they're as solid in that thing as I am.
That's true, because that's a commitment to yourself. You know, once you commit to yourself, you ought to do it. So share with me 1 good book that you would like to recommend to my audience, other than Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yes, of course. I will recommend a business book, and it's called Unreasonable Hospitality by, have you heard of that? By Will Guidara. One of the best business books I probably read in the last 20 years. It's the story of Will Guidara and his business partner taking a middle-of-the-road restaurant in New York City and making it the #1 restaurant in the world. And how they advanced and failed and advanced and the micro changes they need to make. It's a business MBA in a book told in stories. They're funny, they're exciting. And if you just replace the word restaurant for business, it applies to any business I've ever seen.
Great. So in 1 word, what does life mean to you?
Fun.
I like that. What is your biggest passion?
My biggest passion, other than my family, probably my family. We love hanging out together with the 3 amigos, my 17-year-old daughter, my wife, and I. Last year, we spent 2.5 months traveling Europe together, being together 24/7. And we loved every moment of it. And I can even talk to my daughter's like, when are we going traveling again? When are we going traveling again? Well, she's a junior in high school, so whenever she has vacation. But that's probably it.
So if you could turn back in time and talk to your younger self, what would you tell yourself and why?
Move faster once you figured something out.
I like that.
So it's not like, oh, scale faster. No, but once you see something is figured out, go bigger, faster. Like in many cases, in 2009, we found that America was for sale and we could buy, we had never bought a house other than the house we lived in. That's when we got started in the improved property market. And we saw that houses were sold that before were selling for $250,000 and having $900 in rent. Now they were selling for $40,000 and had $900 in rent. and we didn't go big enough, fast enough. Now we bought a bunch of houses and we did well, and we created really good net worth because many of these houses we'll own and they're 10x worth more. But I wish I would have just gone 100x on that, because the numbers just make sense. There's no way you could lose in that environment. And I needed to just take every chip I had and put it on the table. I'm complaining on a high level. We did really well. Like, we bought 40 houses and they've done really well. But I wish I would have bought 4,000 houses during that time. And I probably could have with the network I had, with just talking to the right people and things like that. But I didn't have the guts, even though there was no guts necessary. It was just, you just needed to look at the numbers. The numbers worked.
That's
So once
true.
you figure something out, just go big.
I like that. But the thing is, guts come with your knowledge and experience, right? If something is
Sure.
not in your experience, it's very hard to do it, because you have all this, your thought process going on. Oh, should I or should I not, kind of thing, should have, could have, is always going to be there. But you're at a good place. And how can people reach out to you?
People can reach out to me. The easiest way to go to the website, Land Profit Fun. Like I said, my favorite word, fun, like having fun, F-U-N, landprofitfund.com. And so without the D, it's not the fund, it's F-U-N. Landprofitfund.com. And when they go there, they can download what we call a 30-day blueprint, and which is basically exactly that. It's a 30-day blueprint telling you step by step for free how to set up your own land business. And I also have my own podcast, the Jack Bosch Show. It's purposely called like that because we're talking about all kinds of subjects, but of course, very heavy on real estate. And social media. I'm all over social media too. But Land Profit Fun is the best place to go.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for coming to my show. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
And as always, thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Wife Show. Do not forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anybody who's looking to elevate their real estate journey. And keep up your real estate vibe. Until next time. Bye. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the Real Estate Wife Show. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone looking to elevate their real estate investing game. Until next time, stay focused, stay inspired, and keep building your real estate life. Thanks again.